To the point that when I introduced him, I called him Shane Warm, like the temperature.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cry Me the River. I'm actually going to say an Irish hello today because I have somebody who looks way more Irish than me and very beautiful. Like, she got like the natural red hair. I have the very beautiful and talented Lynn Gilmartin.
Hi.
Hi. And I'm also going to call you Lynn McCarthy Gilmartin because your mum sounds McCarthy. When I was like deep in a stock, I was like, that's right. McCarthy.
It's extra Irish sounding.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for everyone who's watching this who knows anything about poker, you probably have seen Lynn a million times more than you've ever seen me. Probably lots of people are clicking on this being like, I know the redhead girl. Who's the other chick?
Hey.
So I'm Lauren. But
Queen of poker in Sydney.
No, I mean, probably, but
Australia.
no, I see she goes too far every time. But yeah, so Lynn, you are a multitude of things. It like literally a multitude of things. But everyone will know you best as being the anchor for WPT for sure. Your face has been everywhere for years, for literally years. But she still looks the same. It's like not fair. And so I was just hoping if you could take us back to where it all started. So you are Australian, just to clarify.
I am, but I was born in Ireland. So it's always a long-winded answer. I was born in Ireland and we moved to Australia when I was a baby. So I've always had the Australian accent and I have a very strong connection to Australia. I am definitely Australian, but you know, it's with an asterisk. I've got the Irish roots, the Irish blood.
The beautiful Irish complexion. I tell you all the time, for any Irish people watching this, one of the first conversations I ever had with Lynn, which she did not understand, but her parents did. I said, you genuinely look like Niamh from Usheen and Tiernan Og.
Oh yeah, I forgot to look her up. That's right.
Niamh and Tiernan Og, where there's an Irish folktale where she's just so beautiful and she has long red hair and she genuine bright blue eyes. And I'm like, oh, so Lynn, Niamh, Tiernan Og. So you are Australian.
Yes.
And you are not only Australian, amongst everything else, when I was researching kind of where it all began, I saw that you attended, I love academia, literally love it. And I saw that you attended La Trobe and I had such FOMO because that is the best university in Australia, but one of the best universities in the entire world.
Is it? Wow.
Yes.
I didn't even know that.
Oh my God, it is. It is. It's like
been a long time.
So what was that all about? I think you have a degree in marketing, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I studied business, majored in marketing, and it was just so much fun. La Trobe was a beautiful university to go to because it was sort of outside of the city. There was so much space. I had started at RMIT studying public relations first and then moved over to marketing. And I loved it. It just had the full campus vibe, whereas the first one I went to in RMIT was more of the business building in the city. And yeah, I always sort of tell people or, you know, students, if they're not sort of sure what direction to take or what to do when it comes to leaving school, a marketing degree is so helpwill.
Universal. I literally study it so much now. I'm
Right?
like, why did I ever waste my
needs-
time with law?
Yeah. I was wondering how long it would take you to drop the law.
It's in every episode. Like literally, they have like a ding, ding, ding. But I lately with the company or whatever, I try study marketing a lot more, and it is quite literally one of the most important degrees. It's like so universal.
It is. You're learning how to speak to an audience, and we are speaking to an audience every day. From the when we're ordering a coffee to making a commercial, it doesn't matter what it is. There is an audience, and you're also being marketed too. So also being a conscious consumer and understanding what is going on around us, because there is like relentless influence in our world. So understanding it from both sides is just really helpful. And it doesn't matter what then direction you take with your career, just understanding your audience, how to pitch to your boss, how to sell an idea, how to start a business and create a brand around it and sell that. You know, we're always, or host a TV show and understand your audience. So even though my career isn't necessarily in marketing directly, it has been greatly helpful.
See, I was actually, when I looked up your history and how it all began, I was actually like, you're probably one of the only people I've ever saw how it began and thought, oh, that makes sense. Whereas everyone else is kind of like, how did you fall into poker? And they're like, oh, I don't know, I was at a house party and I had a home game. But yours, going from marketing to then, I believe your first job in poker was Poker News.
No, it was actually at Crown Casino.
Was
in
it?
marketing.
See,
Yeah.
okay. So you went to Crown for marketing.
I did. When I graduated university, my first job out of there was as a marketing assistant at Crown. And so that's how I discovered poker. I knew nothing about it.
Okay.
I knew nothing about poker. And I was working in table games in general. And so, you know, when I was sort of getting the tour of all the different games and the gaming floor, that was the first time I really had any kind of introduction to poker. And I remember them just sort of saying, oh, see that table over there, over in the high stakes corner, there's probably a whole house worth of cash sitting on that table. And I'm like, what? I just couldn't believe it. It was like 11 o'clock in the morning. It was some private game that was going on. Yeah. And so, you know, I was at Crown, I was there for about a year in like the general sort of all of the gaming. And I was just like, poker is the fun one. And so I very sort of quickly moved over to poker specifically. And so then I was always in the poker room making brochures for the events for Aussie Millions, setting up the media table when reporters would come in for the international events and things like that. So I learned a lot behind the scenes of how things operated in the casino. But I still, because as a staff member of a casino in Australia, you are not allowed to play at the casino. So I had never played a hand of poker in a casino. At least I played a few home games with, you know, my colleagues to try and like know, to at least understand a tiny bit of what I was working amongst. But I had never played in a casino. By the time I did end up working with Poker News and flying to Vegas, it was actually in Vegas that I played my first hand of poker in a casino.
You know, it's so crazy. You're gonna like die at this. I've been in the industry 10 years, and the first time I ever played poker was like properly was like a year and a half ago. I literally don't play poker. It's so strange. And anytime someone's like, is he a good player? And I'm like, hand him up, think so. I can't really, I don't know what to tell you.
Hilarious.
I know nothing about poker hand rankings ever. Like, do not come for me for advice at all. But you went from the Crown, but then you did work at Poker News, did you?
I did. And so this story I feel always really dates me because I was a marketing assistant and Poker News would come out for our events. And at the time, my boss at the time, she was so kind of, you know, ahead of the game, and she could see, all right, they're making these
a star
video. No, not about me, about like the content and about marketing. We need to sort of do a little bit of what they're doing, and they're making these videos for the internet. And back then that was such a new thing. So she really wanted to be creating videos for the smaller events that Poker News wouldn't come out for. To get approval on a budget to make videos for the internet was just impossible because no one really understood what that really meant. And so because we had no budget for it, I was like, I'll do it. And so that was kind of what happened. I would like to do it. I wanted to, but I was so nervous. And the first time it happened, actually, my friends in the poker room and my boss, they had all kind of conspired, and I randomly got this call when I was up in the office, and like, hey, Linny, can you come down to the poker room? I'm like, okay. So I walked down, and they have this microphone, and they're like, we need you to go and interview Warnie.
Okay.
And I'm like, what? And they had the camera set up and everything. And my very first interview was with Shane Warne. And I was so nervous to the point that when I introduced him, I called him Shane Warm, like the temperature. And it was just, I had no idea what I was doing. And it was so obvious. And I told this story when he passed, which I still can't believe that that's a reality. He was just the nicest. He was such a giving and wonderful person and just a kind man. And for someone who had the experience that he did and who was in the spotlight and had been interviewed thousands upon thousands of times, to, you know, he's there playing in a poker tournament and this rookie is now interviewing him, calling him Shane Warm. And I asked some ridiculous question about his tan. Like, I was just so nervous. But he carried me through that interview.
Yeah.
He supported me so much. He absolutely brought it. He could see that I was nervous and he took over and he gave me such a wonderful, entertaining interview and didn't lean on me, or like he knew I needed the help. And I can see how much that gave me the confidence, because I left that interview like, oh, if I can interview Warnie,
Yeah.
I can interview anyone in this room. Like, I felt like the interview was a success. And looking back at it, I can see now, like, oh my God, that was probably such a pivotal moment for me, because had it gone disaster,
You would have never wanted to touch it.
I would have gone straight back up to my office going, I'm never doing that again.
Mm-hmm.
So I really have him to thank. I have so many people to thank for the progress that my career has made. But that particular moment was really special.
I was originally going to bring that up because I was there when you did your first speech for the memorial. And I was like sat in a corner at the Cherry Bar in Gold Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having like a big tear, because I feel like, especially females, in my opinion, in the poker industry, they always have these kind figures that probably strike them as in they're so scary. If you were to think about it ahead, you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. They tend to be the kindest people. And when you gave that speech for his memorial for the first time, you did mention how kind he was to you in your first interaction.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, God, isn't that crazy that you're absolutely right. If he hadn't have been so kind, you probably never would have ever went near a camera ever again.
Yeah.
But because he was so kind to you, you were like, send the next one in.
Yes.
Like, there's nothing I can't do. And it's so amazing that then your career grew to what it was. And now you can probably look back and be like, wow, the natural course of your relationship, because you played a lot of celebrity meetup games every time in Australia with him. So you guys stayed in touch the entire time.
Yeah.
From then on out, I mean.
Yeah. He became a friend, and he absolutely loved the game of poker.
Yeah.
He was one of poker's biggest fans, just loved it. And every time he entered like a World Poker Tour event, like he just brought this energy, this light, this spirit, just like, how good's this? Like,
you knew he was there for sure. I think he was one of the first ever Australian accents, like actually Australian accent I ever heard, where I was like, he literally sounds like a movie. Like, they're very loud and boisterous and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. And I know nothing about sports. And Will was like, you know, he's like the best cricket star in the world. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I feel like with poker, there's so many people like that, where you're like, wow. And I think hopefully not making things too emotional, but working for WPT, you have worked with some of the most leading personalities, I would say, as in personalities that come into poker and they touch hearts for a lifetime. Obviously, I just cry all the time at WPT because Doyle. You guys had the World Championships, which he was at.
Yes.
And then he passed away.
Yeah.
It felt like quite shortly after that. But I remember looking at that and thinking, having been in the industry for so long now, do you ever watch the interviews you had like way back when, like early Lynn days?
Oh, it's hard to watch them.
No.
It's hard to watch some. Like, oh my God. Because honestly, it's like I've learned on the job. It's not like I was a professional host and then, all right, I'm ready for this gig now. I feel like I'm still we're all still learning at life. We're still learning at all of our jobs. It's always progressing, isn't it? And if we stop learning, then that's,
you're not going forward, then you're going backwards. Yeah.
But I very much learned on the job. Like I mean, even that, right? I jumped in the deep end with my first set of interviews. And then when I was able to move on to start working with Poker News, even then they definitely would have thought that I knew more about the game than I did. I bluffed my way into that. And suddenly I was on a flight to Vegas. I'd never been to the States, and I'm by myself. I'm 24. I just quit my corporate career that I could see this clear path, this clear ladder that I was climbing to success, which I did enjoy. But I was an actor as a child, and I always wanted to be a performer, and I had, put that aside. I'd put that to the side. So this was lighting up that spirit that I hadn't allowed out for a very long time. And so I took this huge leap that I still look back at and think, oh my God, like how that was so brave. It was, the global financial crisis. It was a time when, I had this secure job that I knew would be great forever, or for as long as, I want it to be. But I just leapt out of it and flew to Vegas to make videos for the internet. And it was, another dive in the deep end that continues to still reward me, taking that big leap of faith for something that really lit me up rather than just being the safe path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that you went to Vegas, and then obviously somewhere in between you working from Poker News, you are now the leading lady at WPT. And if you were to look at WPT at a brand, it seems as though you guys, the brand kind of created and then overnight built this insane team where you were present from the very start. How did it come to be that you moved from Poker News to World Poker Tour, and how has that been? How's your journey been?
Well, WPT, we're in season 22 and I've been around 11 seasons. So exactly half of the life of WPT, I've been there, which is unreal. Like it's such an honor. And the brand has evolved so much over that time. And it is just such a gift to have the World Poker Tour it's a part of, like, Adam Pliska, the CEO of the World Poker Tour, he calls all of us, our team, the WPT family. Yep. And he really does lead in that way. It does feel that way. We're this traveling circus. And it's like a family. But then also the WPT is part of my family. My husband, Angel, is now an ambassador for WPT Global in Mexico. And Bodhi comes along to every single WPT stop.
100% he's going to be like, they'll find the youngest country that someone can play poker in, and Bodhi will be the sponsored pro when he turns 11.
So it's part of my family and always will be. But the way that I got the job, it was a call that I got out of nowhere. I was in Melbourne and I got this phone call from the States, and I was told that WPT was starting an additional show, like a spin-off show for WPT Alpha 8, and they wanted to have a whole new lineup of talent for that show, for the hosts, and asked if I wanted to anchor that show. And I still remember I was in Melbourne, like I was home alone at the time, and I literally was jumping up and down when I hung up the phone. Like,
oh, it's the best feeling.
Yeah. It was just like, it just came out of nowhere. It was like my time at Poker News was my 4-year audition of putting in the work and, achieving the greatest sort of next step that I could possibly have received and progressed to. And then WPT moved me over to the States, and it kind of just evolved. Then actually Kimberly Lansing, who was the anchor of WPT before me, then went to move on. She was having another baby, and so then they're like, actually, do you want to host both shows? And you can be the link between both shows. I'm like, oh my God, it just kept getting better. And then I also signed on as a producer, and so on WPT Alpha 8 I was producing for all of those shows as well. And what was amazing too was my time as a reporter at Poker News. You just sort of learn, like, it's kind of like the lower the budget you work with, the more roles and hats you wear.
Yeah, you make do.
Yes. So that was such a wonderful training ground as well, because I was doing all of it other than holding the camera. I'm, making the relationships, deciding who I'm going to interview, thinking of all the questions, doing my own everything. And so then moving into television was funny, because then suddenly I was like, oh,
you got to step back.
Yeah.
And you're
I'm
like, no,
oh,
no.
you're going to bring the play to me? Oh, okay. You want me to say these questions? Okay, cool. Like it was such a, cool, I'm doing way less and this is such a bigger job. You always expect if it's a bigger job, it means more.
It's going to be the opposite.
That was
yeah.
Yeah. There was someone there doing my hair and my makeup.
Oh, I mean, not that you need it, but that's fine.
That was a bit.
But you mentioned earlier that I'd like to bring back up, because I did have a quick conversation with you earlier about it, and I spoke to Max about it like a couple of years ago. I used to work as a dealer in Europe. Mm-hmm. And I just remember you work for so many different brands, right? You really do. And you travel in and you travel out. But there's something about the WPT family. And I want to reiterate that, because it's obviously easy for you to say because you live it. But from an outsider's perspective, when I look at WPT and what they've achieved as a brand and the head figures, and not even just the head figures, the head staff members, everything, you guys genuinely do give off the family feel. And I really do believe that when you had the World Championships, which is one of the most recent, I was about to say one of the most recent things you guys did, but it was monumental in so many ways, and it still is. I remember looking at it and thinking, wow, isn't that insane that you could put that whole team anywhere in the world? And it just seemed like you guys could be in a small little poker room in Melbourne, or you could be in the Wynn in Las Vegas. But the atmosphere you guys created was the exact same.
Aww.
It was such a family feel, and like watching it as an outsider and watching the clips and stuff like that, every figure, whether it's yourself or Tony or even Matt Savage, Danny McDonough, every part of the globe, those figures represent the brand so well. And I think it's so easy to do that when you are such a family. You have the same traits across the board. If I talk to you and if I talk to Matt, it's actually the same. I remember I went to TDA for the first time and I was like crying in a corner. I was petrified, and I kept like writing notes on the phone because I'm so opinionated. But if someone knows me, like the laugh says it all, I'm so opinionated. But I'm actually really nervous if I don't know someone. So I kept like giving notes to my friend, but like, I don't agree with this. And then Matt twigged on really quickly, and he was like, you're the one that's telling him to say that. Where are you from? And I was like, oh, I'm from Ireland, but I live in Australia. And he was like, straight away, like, Lynn? And I was like, yes, Lynn. But it's such a strong family feel. Do you feel as though, it sounds like before that you were always ready to pivot, ready to go on to the next thing. And to be fair, even with WPT, you did pivot elsewhere outside of poker, which I'll get into later. But do you feel as though when you found WPT, that's your home?
100%.
Yeah.
I always say to them, I'm never going anywhere. They're stuck with me for life until they kick me out.
Every time there's like a contract, you're like, no, I'm here forever. Like, I'm on this.
Yeah, it is just wonderful. And I remember when I first started, and obviously the Australian accent can be difficult to understand at times.
I don't
for
relate.
Americans in particular. And so I'm like, obviously the word poker, for an Australian to say poker to an American.
Poker.
Yeah, they're like, what? And so I really have to Americanize. When I am just wandering around life and I talk to someone outside of a casino, I will say poker. Like I have to pronounce it with an R. Otherwise they have no idea what I'm saying. So, but I had called WPT. I'm like, do you want, because World Poker Tour, it sounds like on the should I speak with more of an American accent? Like I wasn't sure how to handle this because I just butcher the name World Poker Tour. But they're like, no, just totally be you. We just want you like as you are, and I guess it brings the world to the World Poker Tour with the Aussie accent. But that was just very symbolic as well to how they are with Adam. He's not trying to change anyone, just be yourself and show up as yourself. And I guess that's what you're seeing, where there's this constant similarity. You feel that same energy. Like Savage will go on his rants on Twitter, and that's what he does. We all just do
for it. I'm like, go off, because he's so smart. So from a tournament director,
and so experienced.
I'm like, go off. Like he gives like full thesis, and I sit down with like a cup of tea, and I'm like, he has the beginning, middle, and end ready to go. And then, but he's really good as a tournament director because he's so open to other perspectives. Yeah. All the time.
And that's also such a wonderful quality of WPT. Constantly, and Savage really leads that with the conversations all the time, and just constantly asking for feedback from the community. It's truly always all about the players. And Adam Pliskett, he looks at life like an art piece. It's like life is just, it should be fun. It should be wonderful, magical. Let's just make the best possible experience that we can for people. Nothing that we do at the World Poker Tour is for a quick buck. It's always, how can we use the resources that we have to make the best possible experience that we can for the players, and everything's for the players. And that was what the hashtag was for our first World Championship in 2022. The hashtag was thank you players, because it was just this massive kind of gathering. It just would not have happened had players not supported it. You know, you can put on an event, you can throw a party. It's not a party if no one comes. And so having the support that we have had for 22 years from the community is just amazing. And so this was really like a thank you players for being around. Like at the time, I think that was season 19, 20. It just became, it became what it is from event number one, because the players showed up, and Win Las Vegas is just incredible. And then everything that the World Poker Tour brings, all the feedback that we've always taken on board and respected and honored, and tried to just do as much as we can to always bring it. And I really feel like with the World Championships, we brought it.
Oh,
like
it
the
got
team
me.
absolutely brought it. And our team is not big. You would think
No.
that what our events look like, that we would have a team of hundreds, but we don't. It's a small team that are in it for the love of it. And
I was going to say, you can feel the authenticity though in everything you guys do then, because I know you said it was very in line with what WPT has always been, and WPT has always been a very beloved brand by the players. But for me, poker events, branding, marketing, launching new events in such a competitive market, it really gets me going.
yeah,
And it felt like at that point in time, WPT was already such an established brand, as in the numbers were exceptional. On every stop you guys went, I used to work in Belgium. Like, it was so much fun. You guys, if it wasn't broke, you didn't have to fix it. However, it just seemed like when you guys launched a World Championship, I was like, oh, they're not messing around here. It just seems like it was like there are all these incredible brands, incredible poker brands, everybody stepping their game up. You were already had your game stepped up, but then it seemed like you guys did not come to mess around with that event. And you, in my opinion, from an outsider, not that it needed to be relaunched, but it definitely captured the attention of everybody worldwide. And doing that at that point in time in the world of so many poker events like EPT, Triton, so many all exceptional brands. But for the months leading up to that, all anybody was talking about was the World Championship at the Win. And I think that's because largest guarantee.
Yeah.
And it was,
you know, it started at 15 million, which was impressive, and then 40 million the very next year.
I was like,
what
they're
a
taking
jump.
the piss now. I was like, they're literally taking it.
And then there was just something wonderful. Yeah, I mean,
Most beautiful venue, in my opinion.
It is
most beautiful venue. There's nothing
out of this world.
Yeah.
Everything about Win Las Vegas is just bougie. It's luxury. It just makes you feel special. You just want to dress a little nicer.
Oh my God, when I get water from there, I'm not joking. When I get water from there,
nice.
I'm like, I look at it and I'm like, $42 a bottle, but I'm hydrated. Before I even drink it, I'm like hydrated, because the Win's probably far too bougie for me, but I'm an Encore gal, so I'm like piss drunk at 4 a.m, but I'm like, but it's elegant. It's elegant because it's here. You walk back through and it has like all the beautiful red and it's oriental and flowers, and it's like so stunning. So how did the Win correlation come to be? Did you guys just be like, where's the most beautiful place?
Yeah, well, they're just, I mean, they're the like premier poker room like in the world, like one of, right? When you think of the best, most luxurious, well-run ships when it comes to poker, Win is there, right? It's exceptional. And we had a couple of events with them before, and they're just a wonderful partner. Ryan Beauregard and the whole team at Win are just legends. And so this was just this monstrous creation between WPT and Win. Look at the tournament series that Win have been running for years. It's always huge. Everyone loves playing there, and it's for a reason. And you know, it just keeps evolving. You know, we had the 40 million last year, and now this year we've got this $5 million free roll.
What did you? What? When it launched, Will was like to me, "Lord, do you know what the winner do? Do you know what WPT are doing?" And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "They're doing a $5 million free roll." And I was like, Are you high? Like, what?
I know. I love it. This is what, when I said how Adam just looks at life like an art piece, everything is just like, let's get creative. Let's just do something new. Let's do something that makes people go, wow, that can be the grandest experience they could possibly have. Imagine, there was a stat just dropped yesterday, I think, that of the seats that have been awarded already to the free roll, I think it's like 80% of them or something, it's their first tournament.
What? It's so exceptional.
Wild, right?
Yeah.
So you've got some guy flying in from Ohio who has never played in a major tournament. He probably plays home games for $20, and now he's about to play in a $5 million free roll for $1 million.
It's insane.
First place.
But that's what poker, for me, that is what poker is about. Like, that is what poker, like, everybody, the reason the WSOP became the biggest event, that, like, one of the biggest events ever, if not the biggest, is because it genuinely is the place you go to make your dream. Yeah. Like, it's bizarre. And I look at it and I think how exceptional that you guys are giving that opportunity to people for free. And it's so insane that even when they sit down before the first card's even dealt, that is a memory. That is something that they're talking about now with their family, and they're probably nervous for studying, and it's just growing the love of poker, because it's like, okay, I want a seat now, and it's probably people are going out to buy books and looking it up and be like, oh my God, and they sit down, and the first feeling when you give the dealer the ticket. I used to love, as a dealer, someone would sit down and they'd be like, do I give that to you? And I'm like, I hope you have the best day. Like, I hope everybody's nice to you. And yes. Oh, okay. So this leads me perfectly onto a little pivot, as if the WPT World Championships wasn't like exceptional achievement enough. I still don't know where to give my ticket. You decided to play, and I was like to Will, that's such a smart move, because she has great outfits every day. But it was like, you obviously play a lot of WPT's events, which is exceptional for the brand, because I do, without even blowing smoke up your, I swear on all them.
It's your podcast.
Smoke up your ass.
Yeah, you set the rules.
Without blowing smoke up your ass, you represent the brand so well. Like, every single table you go to, you sit down, you're like, hi everyone, and everyone's like, it's so lovely. So you did that. And then I saw you do it the next day, because I was like, okay, what's she wearing today? And then the next day, and I was like, what the? So you made it to day 4, and you came 91st ever, over 3,000.
Yeah. What the hell? What? I still am just, because it was the most extraordinary event we've ever had. It was just electric in that room every day. And I was just like dressing up. I was just playing dress ups for a month. It just felt like the greatest.
I loved it. December. It was my fashion week. It was the greatest December. I agree. It was literally my fashion week. It was a great December. Every single day I went on like a stalker, and I was like, what is she wearing today? And I was like,
God, that's so funny. Nice. All right, no pressure, because I'm about to start packing for this December. So I'll remember that. 100%. Oh no, I'll step it up for Lauren. But to top it off with then being able to play. I had not played in a 10K event before. So
10K US for any Australians, which is
15,000 Australian. And so I was mortified to be playing at a 10K, like so overwhelmed by the intimidation, like, oh my God. The most I think I'd played, was a 1K before I played in the 10. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, maybe 1,500 at most. And I was like, if I just make it to dinner break on day 1, that was kind of my first goal.
For me, I'm like, just please do not let me be forced out, because it's going to be so embarrassing. Everybody's going to cry, scream at me. I'm like, please. And you make the first break and you're like, oh, it's all good.
Okay.
It's all good now.
We're getting there. But I had chips by dinner break.
Yeah.
I had a lot of chips. I'm like, what? And then I bagged day one. I was so stoked to bag. Yeah. And I was also so proud where I was like, okay, I've just bagged in a major tournament with the best players in the world. And I'm in the best casino in the world. And now I'm walking the halls of Encore Las Vegas in the hotel with my baby in the carrier to get him to sleep. And I'm like, yeah, mama, this is what it looks like. This is good. We can do this.
There is nothing I can't do.
Yeah, I was feeling great. And then went on to day 2 and then bagged again. And I'm like, what is happening? Day 3.
They're long days as well.
They were long days. And I was just buzzing the whole time. So that's what I just love about a poker tournament. It's like, oh, what, you play for 12 hours? Like, oh yeah, but you are wired. Like it's just so fun to be on that kind of ride. But so overwhelming. But I did, I just felt this sudden like, I can do this. Like, you know, I really wish that I did have the time to study the game more than I do. And the dream would be that when Angel and I are hanging out at the playground with Bodhi, that he coaches me, but we just don't. We that's like, come on, you don't want to talk about work when
you're both such career people. But I will admittedly be a little bit of a hater. And I said to Will, I mean, it's pretty insane that your husband is one of the best players in the entire world. So surely at the end of day 2, you're like, okay, like you need to sit down. You need to talk me through.
I did do that during that event. I'm like, oh my God, okay, teach me everything. No, but like now. Now. And he's like, there's nothing, what you're doing is fine. I'm not actually going to tell you anything, which was this is why he is the greatest, because then it would just, it would just get in my head. It's just keep doing what you're doing. It's working. And also I am terrible at recalling my hands. I'm kind of one of those people, which I like to think is a nice characteristic in life too. Like once that's over, moving on, just forget about it. Like reset, forget, let's go, keep going. So anyway.
I'm the worst at that. Even when I used to deal, people used to say to me, sorry, dealer, what was on the last flop? And I was like,
no idea.
Do you think I know? I know C3 he had a straight, but I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember. Did he get it on the turn? I can't remember. Maybe it was a reverse.
And I always laugh at guys. I don't know if you have this with Angel, but I swear it needs to be studied. It's such a contention of mine where I don't know men's ability to remember a hand that they played like 15 years ago with a guy, but cannot remember to put the washing out. What's that about?
What is that?
I mean, how do you want? I don't want to be psychotic, but you're taking the piss. It's just crazy. But the guys are like, oh yeah, I played 100 like 7 years ago in Rio and he checked the turn. And I'm like, I don't even know what I had for breakfast yesterday. And I think that's what makes poker players, really, really good poker players, just so exceptional.
Because they're really retaining the lessons from every game they play.
When you did so well, did it like spark a little fire in you?
Oh, for sure. I was ready to go pro. I was ready. I signed up I'm like, that's it. I'm going to start studying. I've just been donating my money and not studying at all. But no, it just affirmed that, okay, I've been learning in probably the slowest way possible, but just in a very passive way over the years of watching so much poker on TV and interviewing players and just watching poker. That you are going to, and I learn on the job. It's the same, I guess, with the hosting. I love playing. It's so much fun. And so I've just been learning while I'm playing without necessarily, it's probably a more expensive, long-winded way to learn. But anyhow, I felt so proud that I was able to go that far to day 4 to really hold my own, play against some of the best in the world. Like day 1, I had Darren Elias on my table, especially at a WPT. Like he is just our goat. Like, oh, great. Okay, cool. That's why I was like, please make it to dinner break.
You're like looking up at Matt Savage. You're like, nice randomized teacher.
But then what was extra rewarding was then the next World Championships, I went deep again. I think I got 145th or something like that. I think day 3 I went onto. So that felt great too. To come 2 for 2 now in World Champs. I'm about to go play my third.
I was about to say, third time's the charm. Yep. In the words of the Irish, third time's the charm.
Bring it.
She'll sit down and she'll be like, I love this for everybody, but you can all have seconds. Like this is my time. Mm-hmm. So you fly out next week, right?
I do. Yeah. We're going to go to Mexico first to visit Angel's family.
Yeah.
And then off to Vegas.
We keep dancing around it, but you have a wonderful husband who my roommate said to me the other day, do you ever reckon Lynn's husband's Robert Downey Jr.?
Yeah.
And I was like, what, like the Marvel character? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, Lynn, I see it.
That's so fun. I do
gotta
too
be honest.
sometimes.
Like, now I see it. I'm like, oh, okay.
It's
I
so
see
funny.
it.
I posted a picture the other day and someone wrote that on there. He gets that a lot. Like on Instagram, people will say, is that Robert Downey Jr.?
You guys are such, I love seeing couples in poker, because I feel like I discussed it in some other episodes with some of the players, where poker, it's not all glamorous as much as we may seem it is. It's super not, and especially if you're a player, not fun. Like a lot of times. So when I see a couple that are in poker together, I'm like, it tends to be an incredible relationship, because you guys are able to relate with each other on a level that some family friends, they just don't get poker.
Yeah.
It's strange. And you guys seem to be together like for forever. So how did you guys meet?
13 years we've been together. Yeah, long time. And it was because back when I was with Poker News, I was traveling around the Latin American poker tour.
Ooh.
And he was a sponsored pro. We were both in our 20s, getting flown around Brazil, Argentina, Costa Rica.
Very taboo. Very, I love it. I was about to say I have the same trajectory, but I was in Luton. Like, that's not very good.
A little less
You
sexy.
got to go, yes. I got like Luton and Five Guys, and you got, I was like going around Latin America. What can I say?
Yeah. And so we made it work. I was living in Melbourne. He was living in Mexico, and we would kind of we'd see each other along the tour, and then I'd go to Mexico and he'd come to Australia, and we'd sort of alternate. And when I got my job with WPT and they moved me to LA, I was so stoked for so many reasons. But I'm like, now we're just next door to each other.
Say, part of your heart was like,
yes,
a little bit of fate, right? As in, you're like, okay, this is, and it's pretty special as well, because if you look at them on a map, like Melbourne and Mexico,
not easy to get to.
No. So you just hit it off straight away.
Yeah. He's amazing.
And then my favorite thing that you did, because I swear to God, it used to keep me up at night. I kept thinking, when you're in poker, you make such incredible friendships and relationships along the way that I think maybe other industries, but really poker in general. So you travel a lot together, your team, you go around the world, you go through so much things together, and then you connect with such wonderful players everywhere. And when you're a couple in poker, it's almost like everybody is kind of part of your relationship, in the sense of they watch you grow. So when marriage comes the topic, it's like, what's the story? Am I hosting like the Emmys or something? Like, am I inviting everybody, especially in Ireland? Because in Ireland, good luck. Like, you invite the whole road, your neighbours, the person who baptized you just because. And it's like, you look at getting married and you're like, where were we going to do it? Especially he's Mexico, you're Australia, but then you're based in America, and it's like, who do you
and
invite?
all my family's in Ireland. So like, can we be any more widespread?
No.
And I think that's why we were together for 10 years without getting married.
Okay, I love it.
We always sort of said like, whatever, it's just a contract. Who wants to bring in the government? I don't need the government to prove our love. Like, that's just what we used to say, like, whatever. But probably also it was that overwhelm of, oh God, where would we even do it, and how would we get everyone together? It was just such a big deal. So we just weren't really, I just didn't really feel like we needed it necessarily.
But then you got married in the most authentic poker way.
The best.
You got hitched in Vegas.
We totally eloped, and it was so much fun.
Did
and
you do
it happened
Little White
because
Chapel?
We did.
Oh, so sick.
I love this story because it was during COVID. It was May 2020 when there was all that unknown and everyone was just scared of seeing any other human.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd been, locked down in LA. Anyway, it was just wild. And I booked a film in Australia. I'm like, when I got the audition, I'm like, who is auditioning right now? The world has paused and nothing's happening. And I thought, okay, it's in Australia. They were going to fire up a little test run to see if someone could make a film in Australia. I never thought I would have gotten it, given that I was in LA and Australia had all of the restrictions and the quarantine going on. And there was like one flight a week from the States to Australia at the time. But I did get the job and I couldn't believe it. So we had to get on the next flight. But the borders were closed to citizens only. and immediate family.
I never knew this story.
Yeah.
This is so good.
And so we called an immigration lawyer and we're like, because Australia does recognize de facto relationships. So we were like, is that enough? But they basically said to make sure, that
there's no red tape, that they don't throw any roadblocks in your way.
Yeah, you should get married. So this was on a Wednesday. We drove to Vegas on the Friday, got married in a drive-through chapel because it was
because it's cool.
We did not want to wear masks while we're getting married, and we didn't want to get out of the car and be around anyone in a room, and Vegas was completely shut down. Like there were no hotels open, nothing. The Strip was an absolute ghost town. So we drove LA to Vegas. It's like 4-hour drive. Did the whole drive-through chapel thing, got takeaway sushi and drove back that same day. And it was such a wonderful, spontaneous way and we're so grateful that it did happen. We were like, I can't believe we waited this long.
I was just saying, I'm sure you hit the whole, we should have done this years ago.
We should have done this years ago. And it just, the entire day, it was just us. It was not about anyone else. We weren't worried about the flowers not arriving on time. We weren't worried about some family members not liking it, whatever the distractions can be. It was just him and I in the car for 8 hours talking about our future together. And it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. So I have the wacky COVID era. I like to just focus on all the positivity that happened during that time for us. And that, helped us get married. And then we got on the next flight to Australia, had a quarantine. I called it the quarantine honeymoon.
Yeah, it was a quarantine.
Paid by the Australian government. And yeah.
I would love to know though, how did your mommy take it? Because every time I used to go to Vegas, I swear to God, my mom would be like, Lauren Cora Mooney, I'm telling you, if you take this day away from me. Like,
actually, I think it was my dad who was a bit more I think.
Oh, you're his only baby.
Yeah, so maybe I've taken away that opportunity to walk me down the aisle. But
do you know what? It might
day.
be, I actually can already picture it now because I'm like so picturing your beautiful family. I'd say when you have like a big anniversary, you might do like a renewal of your vows kind of thing, and then your dad will. But Irish parents, no, they're not taking that well. Like literally,
we did always say we'll have a ceremony when we get home. But
did you guys have even like I was about to say for someone who traveled so much, but did you guys do like a proper honeymoon then, or?
Because we travel so much.
I don't want to make relevant to the timing, but it's very soon after it.
Oh, yeah. Well, to me, we fell pregnant very soon after. So it was like bam, bam, bam. Honestly, it was like 10 years of milestones happened in 6 months during COVID for us. It was wild. We moved to Australia. We fell pregnant with Bodhi. I shot like movie after film.
Oh my God.
I
was literally floored. So sorry for being rude.
No.
I was floored. I went through like the last 4 years of your life and I was like, perfect example that COVID, nobody else was doing shit. But in the last 4 years, you somehow managed to so I always thought this. You did actually reference it earlier. You already answered my question, but you did already want to be an actor, as in that was what you did because God graced you beautiful from the get-go. So it makes sense that you were like a child actor and driven towards that. But then obviously you just blew up in the poker industry, and I don't know how you had time, but in the last 4 years then it seems like you went in, you auditioned and then it was like, just keep sending them. Just keep sending them because it seems like you just went from like movie and like there's a lot that I'm gonna list here because you did How Do You Know Chris, which you look so young in that.
I was so young, and I had an Irish accent in that one.
Yes, I looked at it and
that
I was like,
fun.
She looks so young because I was like stalking. I was like,
that one was pre-COVID. That was like my first proper film to work on. Yeah.
And then you had the very excellent Mr. Dundee, which is like so Aussie. But my favorite was like Neighbours. Oh my God. The whole rest of the world is like Neighbours. Like I literally knew it so well. I was like, Sean, Neighbours. Then you had This Little Love of Mine, which I remember loved it during COVID because I remember watching it so much. That also looked like your whole crew there were like a family.
Yeah, that was wild. That was the film that brought me home. So that was the film that I landed that I never thought could have been possible. Yeah. And it was such a gift. So that was over June, July in 2020 when the world just felt like it was imploding. Yeah. We all locked ourselves away, basically, with the only way that we could. We were the first film to go back into production worldwide. Yeah, they took a massive gamble. And the way that we did it was we were filming in a resort in far north Queensland, in Palm Cove, which actually is right around the corner from where my family lives, which is also wild. And we formed a COVID bubble. So because there was no tourism, the hotel was empty, the restaurant was empty. So the whole cast and crew, we all stayed in this resort. We had our families, like Angel came, he was living the high life in this fancy resort overlooking the pool, just playing poker online, like just chilling. And then the resort, the restaurant that was a part of that hotel, which is like a 5-star amazing restaurant called Nunu, they were feeding us breakfast, lunch and dinner.
Oh, wow.
And we weren't allowed to leave, but you don't want to leave anyway.
That's so unlucky. I can't leave my 5-star resort. I would love to.
So, and we just got to lose ourselves in this beautiful little romance story, making the movie and playing dress ups and not turning on the news and just ignoring it all,
seeing the darkness that really swallowed everything up at that point in time. And I remember looking at photos of you, which is so cute. That's like your first one that brought you home, and then on your premiere you were heavily pregnant.
Yes,
and you look so beautiful and glowy, and your mom just looks so happy and proud.
Yeah.
Like she's like my mom, like the queen of the Facebook post. Like the worst angles, but it's just such pride. That was incredible. And then funny, very funny, strange story. So it genuinely wouldn't be obviously an Australian poker movie without Lynn. How I first ever spoke to you was Poker Face. Which was strange that you had that story during COVID, because COVID was a strange situation for myself and Will too, because we are not permanent residents. So when COVID hit, I'm like the queen of being homesick every like 6 months and being like, oh, I need to go home.
No.
I make excuses of like, listen, my neighbor's cat died. I can't miss that. Like I literally go home so much. I actually go home in 2 weeks and I'm like dying for it, but I go home all the time. And then COVID hit. And if I went home, I didn't know when I could come back because I wasn't a resident.
Yeah.
So COVID hit, and obviously every poker room, all of our companies shut down, and Will and I were just like, I remember, I don't even know I'm getting, but I remember feeling real low at that point in time, where I was like, it was just him and I in this little apartment, and I was just, for the first time, I felt how far away from Ireland I was. I really did. And I was like, everybody was in lockdown back home anyhow. So my mom just kept saying, you're not missing anything. And I was like, but you're all locked down together. You don't get it. But I was like really, really low. And the company shut. We had no income because we weren't entitled to anything, not being Australians.
Wow.
And luckily, like Irish parents, I've been saving since I'm like 2. I'm pretty sure I have like christening money somewhere flying about. But luckily I was fine. I was fine financially, but you just didn't know when it was going to end.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, I've lived here for 4 years now, and Rod had just bought the Poker Palace, but I just committed to the Palace, and I was running the Palace, and I was like, okay, if I go home, I lose everything. Everything I've lived here for, to build up, whatever. But also, if I stay, how long do we stay for? And then one day we get like this most random call, and it was yourself, and it was like, hey, do you guys and literally this is how Will related to me, but knowing Lynn, this is genuinely probably how it happened. It was like, hey, yeah, Lynn wants to know, can we go help work on the poker set on the movie set for Russell Crowe? And I was like, like the Gladiator. And
the actual gladiator.
Like the Gladiator. And Will was like, yeah, she wants to know, can we go help on the movie set? I said, what's the movie? It's like Poker Face, it's Russell Crowe. And I was like literally, like, Lynn wants to know, do you want ham on your sandwich, or do you want cheese? And I was like, what? And it seemed like it was so quick as well. Like it was like, this was like, let's say a call on a Tuesday, and it was like, can you go to the set on a Friday? And I was like, a movie set? I don't know anyone who's ever been near a movie set. And I was like, okay, like, sure, I suppose. And we showed up, and I was like, within 20 minutes, I was like, what the fuck is going on here? I am so confused. And I remember calling my mom, being like, Mom, guess where I am? She's like, what are you up to? And I was like, Mom, I'm on a movie set with Russell Crowe. And she was like, I love him so much. You tell him I'll leave tomorrow for him. I'll leave tomorrow for him. I was like, Mom, what? She was like, I will leave, because he was the thing from my mom's era. She was like, oh my God, I loved him. And I was like, ham. And then there were so many huge stars on that set. I remember sitting there. I was in love with Liam Hemsworth. Do I ever tell you this story?
No, I don't think
I said
so.
to Will's like the queen of like selling me down the river. And I was like, don't you fucking tell him. I love the Hunger Games. I'm such a nerd. I love the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
And I was like, don't you fucking tell him I'm in love with him, blah, blah, blah. So he came into the set and he was like, hey, how are you? Like, really nice. And I was like, I'm fine. How are you? Like, I just pretended I didn't like know him. And then like we were spent loads of time with them playing poker and whatever on the set for weeks. And then like 2 months in, something came up and Will's like, oh, Laura's obsessed with Hunger Games. She reads it all the time. And he turned to me and he was like, you like the Hunger Games? And I was like, what did I tell you? What did I tell you? But I was so nervous.
Oh.
And I just look back at it and all of my family are like, Laura worked on a movie. What the fuck? And I was like, yeah. It's like, how did that happen? I was like, literally, you called me. That's all that happened to make that happen. And I'm like, that was exceptional. But you were meant to be the dealer in that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, when it was all...
Yeah, and Angel and I were the poker advisors, and we were writing. There was sadly all the hands didn't make the final cut of the film, but there was 10 hands. This sequence of hands, and I was 39 weeks pregnant, like about to pop at any moment, and moving house. We were moving house, so it was so like, oh my God, and we were supposed to be on set as the poker advisors, but then COVID, it ripped through Sydney. So they had to change the dates of the shooting of the production. And so they were shooting all of the poker hands right over my son's birth. So we couldn't be down there. And also the borders were locked and everything just happened. Remember what it was like. So we couldn't be down there, and we were like, okay, so we're not going to be there. We have to make sure this is tight. Like this sequence of hands, it was 10 hands and they had to be in sequence. It wasn't like a montage of hands throughout the night where the chips can be whatever. It had to be exact. And Russell is an incredible, like everything is so like specific and perfect.
You
and it is
really sold me down the river with that one.
Sorry.
Trying to explain to a movie set that like someone can't be chip leader out and then be back in to
well, and that's so we're creating this document. Okay, this is hand 1, hand 2, hand 3, and okay, the chip, the button's here, and the cut. But then the story would change, and Russell has such an extraordinary vision, and that's why we all know his name. And so then working with someone who is such a visionary, the hands had to go this certain way. But then sometimes things in the story would change, and he really wanted. It was like this artwork that was helping paint the story that he was painting throughout the film. And so it's like, oh, okay, no, Michael needs to lose his hand now. It's like, oh no, but he's chip leader. Like, how am I going to, whatever. Yep. Okay, we've got to fix this. And so it was like back and forth for 2 weeks while my belly's out here. Like, am I about to go into labor? We've got to get this finished. And then who can we get to be on set that we can depend on? Like that, we can't just have some fan of poker overseeing this. There is so many nuances.
There was a few instances there
mechanics.
where a few people were like, "Oh, I'm this," and they showed up, and I'm like, "They don't work in poker." But it was. I remember seeing this one specific day that exactly that happened, because honestly, I don't know much about. I don't actually much about film. I know nothing about film. It was so surreal for me to see what goes on behind
so much, right?
Oh,
it's wild.
They kept like being like, "Cut, there's not enough fog on the glass," and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So it's so exceptional, the detail that goes into it. And I remember watching this one scene because Russell was just he was insane. I have never seen anybody, obviously I don't know much about film, but I just remember looking at him being like, holy crap, he was so talented. Like when he switched on, he would be having a smoke, having a laugh, and then he would switch on, and I'm like, you are that person now. It was incredible. And I remember there was like this, they sat around with the poker hands, and then they ended up telling like impromptu stories that fit their character. And I'll never forget what, I think it was Liam's character, actually Michael, told a story, and I was like, that was a great story, and was like, that's gonna make it now. And it just changed everything, because when he was telling the story, they were playing hand 2, but that was like hand 8, and I was like, oh, you saw the clash between like the poker and the characters. But it was Like there was a few days where I was like, I was like, no, but the chips are like not right now. And I was just really didn't want to let you down specifically. And I was like, oh no, like how do I tell people that they can't have that footage because the chips are entirely wrong? And it was luckily I'm like ballsy AF, right? And I was like, no, that doesn't work. And they were like, you can't tell us to stop. And I'm like, no, but Lynn told me that Russell would want it perfect, so you have to stop right now because that doesn't match that. But it was insane, like absolutely insane. And I haven't read the script. The 10 hands were really well thought out. I remember reading like hand 6 and being like, oh, it's good.
Yes.
There was like parts where you could see, I can talk about it because it's out now, but I don't think it made the film. But there was like one specific hand where 2 of the characters, spoiler alert, but there was 2 of the characters that were colluding together, as in like they had made a deal amongst themselves against the rest of their friends. And then one of them ran a huge bluff on the other guy, and I was like, oh, he's not your friend. Like, you guys are not. And it was so well thought out. So did you guys create that over?
That was Angel.
Yeah.
Like there were so many sleepless nights where when Angel's thinking or you know talking through something, he paces. He cannot sit still, so he's just up and he's walking around. He's just like the mad scientist, just okay. And I'm there on the computer. I wish I filmed us doing this at 1 o'clock in the morning, super pregnant, and just like just creating art out of
down the line. You guys actually reshot those 10 hands, because I promise you it was hand 6. I will never forget it. And I remember reading it, and I remember it was Liam's character, and oh my God, what was this? Steve Bastoni. I loved him. Yeah. He was so lovely, but those two had a little something going on. And then Liam's character like bluffed him, and I was like, plot twist. Yeah. Like I would love you guys to refilm those 10 hand segments.
Well, it all got filmed. I should find out. Get our hands on it all. It would be so cool to see it. To see Russell Crowe playing poker. Come on, this is
the thing. So I was so surprised. Well, first of all, we just genuinely thought we would be locked in like a Harry Potter broom closet away from everybody else, right? Well, that's what I was betting on, by the way. I was hoping for that. And then like 5 minutes in, they were like, okay, we're just going to sit and play poker, Lauren Deal. And I was like, oh my God, where do I put the button? Like it was the scariest thing ever, because they were just so normal, and they were just like, we're just going to play. And I remember watching it, and it was so insane that he was like the director, the main character, and then it seemed like when he went home at night, then he would play poker on the app. Like he really wanted to have an actual understanding of poker. And in the space of like a few days when he was playing the matches, he knew what he was doing. And I was like, you are so intelligent. He's not doing anything by half.
He is so intelligent. Like will not do anything without completely going all in, pun, but about anything. It doesn't matter what it is. And that you can see that. That's why his movies are so exceptional. Like look at A Beautiful Mind to Gladiator. It's like, how can that be the same person? He just completely transforms.
It was insane. He was like, I remember, because he was my mom's generation, and like my mom was like, obviously just so she just loved him, right? And I said, Mom, I don't know much about film, but I know he just really, everyone was exceptional, but my God, did he stand out. And when he was telling us stories, him and Will got on like a house on fire, and he would tell Will stories, and he would like repeat a line of a movie. And I remember looking at him thinking, that is so you just changed in front of my eyes. It was so weird. It was like the first time where I was like, that's exceptional. And I don't know if he did or not, or whether he was just very good at lying, but he seemed to really like poker. Like it was something that fascinated him. Yeah. I think it's like when something's new to him, he's like, I'm going to be the best at this. You could see that in his eyes that he's a winner for sure. You weirdly though, you got written into that scrict. I think. Yeah. I don't remember reading.
Well, no. And so what happened was there was I think 6 days left of shooting or something. It was a 6-week shoot. And they were almost finished. It's almost at the finish line. And then someone got COVID on the set. So it all had to get shut down with just a little bit left of the film to go. So they had to close it down. And then everyone kind of came back again the following year. I think it was about 6 months later, or 8 months later, to pick up those scenes. And because then they had that time and to like go through what was shot, then Russell then wrote me in as his, because basically with a film, you've already got 90% of it shot. You can't now just insert a character. But what he did do was he wrote me as his dead ex-wife in his memories, because that would be a totally separate scene, right? That's totally, you're not trying to insert that into anything that exists. That's just alone, the scenes that are alone. And so I just couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God. And so then Angel and, you know, everything had opened up by then. This was the following year. So we were able to travel down to Sydney. I had my baby, and that was always a dream as well. Like I always dreamt, you know, as a child, I always wanted to be an actor. And when I would fantasize about, you know, as a woman, that I would be in a place in my career when I become a mom, that I can bring my child onto the set. That's always I had two specific dreams actually about my acting career. One was that I would be on the red carpet of a film premiere of my own pregnant. And I did that, as you saw. And the other was that I could bring my child onto the set. And I just cannot believe that it was on the set of Russell Crowe's movie about poker.
You just don't do things by half. You're like, I had these big dreams, so then I doubled it. I added a bit extra.
All the bells and whistles that could be possible. So we went down and filmed those scenes, and I got to see that, you know, they had a few little poker, they weren't playing poker, but like at the table. So at least then I was so happy that I got to see.
So beautiful. I don't know if you saw it, but it was so sick. I was like, I remember asking Russell, like, can I take a photo of your floor? And he was like, yeah, you can take a photo of my floor. I loved the whole thing. You guys have another movie together, Sleeping Dogs.
Yes.
Right? And that only came out not so long ago.
This year, only a few months ago.
Wow.
That was amazing to work on. That was down in Melbourne, and like, you know, this US film shot in Australia, which is also just something that is so exciting to see, just so many more productions coming to Australia, international productions and big movies. And when you watch Sleeping Dogs, you would never know that it was shot in Australia. It looks, it's set in Philadelphia or Pennsylvania.
I remember looking at it and being like, I think I recognize the street, but it's just so insane that you can do that. You can literally, film is just so fascinating to me.
It is.
It's like you can literally be like, this is where it's meant to be sat, but it's actually it's here. And I'm like, what? How did you?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's amazing.
And it's having someone like Russell, obviously, he seems to really authentically really want to bring film to Australia.
Yeah.
And that's like great. But obviously then you have such talent in Australia too.
So
like
much.
I was looking at everybody and I was like, you guys are all really good.
So much. And when you go over to LA, I was living in LA for almost a decade. I met a new Australian every day. There are so many Australians over there.
Down there to try make it when actually they could be at home.
Well, that is something I'm so grateful that has become a reality, because like you, feeling homesick, I was feeling homesick for so long when I was living overseas. I just love Australia so much. And now, but I never thought that I could maintain the job that I have with World Poker Tour and my dream that I have with acting. If I came home to Australia, I really thought I would have to have given it all up. And all of that has just transformed over the last few years, and now here I am, and I have been able to work consistently.
It is literally insane what you've achieved in 4 years. Like, it's actually insanity. I was like to Will, did she literally like give birth and then 20 seconds later be like, okay, Emma, welcome to the World Poker Tour? We're like, it genuinely seemed like you just didn't miss a beat. Like you said, you're on the carpet. You're on the carpet, heavily pregnant, and then straight back to filming, and then WPT were doing such massive things, and you did not miss a beat in any period of that time.
I'm glad it looks that way, because sometimes I get all that, self-doubt and not enoughness, those thoughts that always creep in. But I will say though, I did kind of, I think I was scared to stop, and that's always something that I had a fear of before becoming a mum.
So hard.
That sort of, I want to be a mum, but I love my career so much, and there's this worry that you can't do both. And I have proven to myself that I can, and I didn't have to stop anything at all. And I am so grateful that I work for the World Poker Tour, who is so supportive. Like this space that they gave me to have my son and stay like settle with him and get comfortable, and the support they give me.
It looked like he inherited like a whole family overnight, because
seriously. Yeah, Adam Pliskay is his guide father. We call him, not godfather, guide father. And I love that title. And that's what he is to me and to Angel, to all of us. And yeah, but
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I hope this doesn't come across wrong, but it's just something that I specifically struggle with like lately. I'm getting like older now, and I feel like females in any industry in general, like I won't go into it too much, but females in any industry, men don't really mean to do it, but for me, it's always okay. So like I'll never forget. I love him to pieces, Rob Spano. If you're watching this, I do love you. But I remember APO launched this year, and that was like my brainchild. It was like my stab in the dark. It was my dream. It was everything. Amazing. And when it launched, it was so much bigger than I ever thought, and it was like, what the fuck? It was such a moment. And one of the first things anyone said to me was, okay, well, now you can go have a kid. Now you can go get married. And I entered the industry when I was 18, and now I'm like just after turning 29, and I feel like there is such a stark pressure that's placed on you when you get married. Oh, when you get married, and then it's when you're going to have a child, and it's like, okay, but I will when the time is right. Yeah. But it's super hard, especially in like a male dominated industry. I feel like if I was to step away and have a child, would I have the same fear where it's like, okay, well, maybe I can't do that, but you have just proven. Like I'm not even just saying it. You've just no, more than ever, because Lynn's like, not only am I going to do everything I did before, I'll
get busier.
In acting.
I'll get busier.
I'm just going to do so much more. But it's so inspiring to see that you took your time. You did it on your own terms. You didn't. Yeah. You thrived, and then now you have a baby, and your career is flourishing more than ever. But so is your home life. You really do have it all.
Oh, babe, thanks.
You do. Jeez. And it's so crazy to me when you say like, sometimes I feel like I don't do enough, and I'm like, hey, I want to take a nap just by looking at your day. Are you for real? I like literally watch your story, and I'm like, I'm gonna close my eyes for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's like, why do we torture ourselves? It's that and you just got to constantly keep doing that self-work as well, on looking at our fears and looking at all of that talk that we have that beats us up. And yeah, I fall down that hole of overwhelmed. Like I'll get overwhelmed sometimes because I am doing too much, but then if I'm not doing enough, then I also get overwhelmed because, oh my God, you're wasting time. And just stop with the noise and this keeping up with the society, and everything's so fast paced. And my new motto since becoming a mum though is just because women can do it all, which we can, doesn't mean we should.
Right.
And if I could go back to just the first 6 months of the postpartum phase, I definitely would have taken that way more. I would not have worked at all.
I don't think it seemed like I'm not even taking the piss. It genuinely seemed like you just didn't stop.
Yeah, I didn't. And so I just kind of ran myself into a bit of a ditch. Emotionally, I think that I did too much because I was just sort of like, I can do it all. I went into motherhood a little bit naive. I didn't realize, I was like, how hard can it be? It's COVID. We're not traveling because we couldn't, because the borders were shut. Filming all these things from home, and I was doing the odd little appearance on things in film and TV. And I thought, the baby can just chill in my office, in his little bouncer next to me.
He's gonna cooperate.
Yeah. And
he's never gonna get hungry or fussy.
Yeah. So I kind of overcommitted myself a little while I was pregnant, because pregnancy was a dream. Pregnancy was so easy. And I guess I expected that newborn phase to be equally as easy for some reason. So then I was shocked. So I'd committed myself to, I was on a film 6 weeks postpartum. And I just remember I'm sitting on the actual set, because one of the sets was out in the middle of nowhere, out like an hour out of Brisbane. And there was we were just like on a farm up on some hill. And so I had to just sit on the actual set to pump during the lunch break. You know, I was so raw and emotional and just not ready for that at all. And I did do that. I think that was unfair to myself to have done that. And so anytime I do speak to like a working mom, like it's like it's okay to take a break, and that has been a big lesson.
Ashley just had her baby.
Oh, I know, and she's a dream.
But she's the same as you, by the way. She literally had a baby, and like 20 minutes later, she's on a walk, and I'm like,
I know, she's coming to Vegas.
So
she came over the other day. She lives around the corner from me, and I was like, I need to meet the baby. The baby's only 2 weeks old. I need to meet the baby. I'll come to you. She's like, no, I'll come to you. I've just been out for a walk. I'm just feeding her now. I'll pop down to you. And like, she came to our house. Like, I was just this like in this bubble of everyone would like, I just couldn't go anywhere. I was just so tired, and just all the things. It was just really overwhelming. And some people, everyone is very different. So she is a warrior for sure. And just like, she's coming to Vegas without an issue. She's just so excited about it. And yeah, it's just so different for everyone. And
How has been a mom? I swear you guys just, you, Angel and Bodhi, genuinely do just seem like just such a beautiful, wholesome. Because you talk about, you just mentioned it's crazy the current world we live in, which I feel all the time, like social media, society, everything, they push so much pressure on you. But it feels like whenever I watch your specific content, your family just seem to be so wholesome. Like you guys go to I said at some point this is just like not real. They're like, guys go to the farmers market together, and you just go to the beach, and your son plays piano, and but it's beautiful. It's like if you imagined, for me, if I imagined what family life is still like in Ireland, by the way, but what family life should be like, you do definitely still emulate that. So it seems as though even though Angel has all of his things and you have, I don't even know what else you have at this point in time, but it seems like you guys still make such beautiful time to sit aside now and spend time with Bodhi. Does Bodhi know what his mum does? Like if you were to ask him, like, what does mummy do?
No, he just says working. Like he'll just be like, mummy's working, daddy's working. So he's starting to learn the concept of, okay, working. That's the thing where mummy and daddy can't play with me. So we'll play later. But what is cool is I worked on a show this year. I filmed it, and it's coming out actually this weekend. It's called Rock Island Mysteries on Nickelodeon and Channel 10. It's a kids show. Do you know it?
No, but Nickelodeon, that's so exciting when you have a kid.
I know. I'm so excited.
Yes.
And I come in on season 3. So season 1 and 2 are already out. So I've been showing Bodhi the show so that he gets used to it. And while I was filming, I was showing him, and I was like, oh, that's where mummy's going to work. Like say I was off to work that afternoon, I would show him a couple of episodes. And he's like, you go there? Mummy's going there? I'm like, yeah, that's where I'm going. I'm going to go. It's so cute. And so now, you know, because every week they change, and he's like, he just seems so much older now to 6 months ago when I was showing him. And it was, I've been showing him more episodes, and he calls it your show. Can I see your show?
Oh my God.
But he doesn't know why he's saying that really, because he hasn't seen me on it. So I'm not going to say anything. But when my episodes come on, we'll just sit and watch it. And I can't wait to share it with him.
Yeah, I don't know how a child would react to like, wait, that's my
mummy.
And you'd be looking at you like, but you're here. Like, how are you also there? Yeah, that's so sweet. Do you have any plans for more babies? Or
if it happens, it happens. I just turned 40, so if it happens, amazing. I would love to have another.
What a piss take! But I'm literally not even going to say stuff. I was like thinking of what to say, and I was like, I literally must have. Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. That's incredible. And I remember seeing, and Will's like, it was her birthday last week. I said, what? And I looked up and it was like 40. And I was like, Stuart's inquiry into that. Like, more needs to give me that birth cert. That's not, you do not look a bit of 40.
Thank you. I don't feel it.
But you're, like, you just do not look it. It's not that you don't even look it. It just seems like you have your prime, and then you have your next prime, and then you're like, okay, I'll have my next prime.
Let's create another prime. Why not?
It's so good. You just keep going. Keep going. And I think film is like insane to me that you do that. But then you have poker. But something that's, I think, is arguably one of the most incredible things of all is you are a massive humanitarian and philanthropist. And it's so authentic. As in, like, you do stories. I remember when the bushfires were on, and the whole world cried. It the whole world cried, but nobody cried harder, obviously, than Australians. It was horrendous. It was so horrible.
Yeah.
And you used to do videos and you could genuinely see the pain in your eyes. And I was like, this is like, I love, I think charities are just so important. So important.
Yeah.
And the more we move like into like a different generation, like a different era, it seems a lot of people just care less. It's very like me at this point in time, and a lot of people are guilty of it, but you have done exceptional things. So you work for the Wildlife Warriors, which my parents came to Australia like a year and a half ago, and any Australian watching this would be like, when we were growing up, we used to absolutely love watching Steve Irwin show. Me and my cousin, we used to watch it so much. We were laughing the other day when he died. I think I was 8. Good luck. I was so upset. I was like so upset. And we went to see his show, and his son did it. Robert did it. And I was like, do you guys know what this means? Like, that's Robert Darren. And I was like, what? But they are the founders of the Wildlife Warriors, correct?
Yep.
And it's
the
Australia Zoo, and it's for families. Families? It's for animals that were damaged in the bushfires, and koalas specifically.
Yeah.
They got it harsh. And you also work with Currumbin, correct?
And the Currumbin Wildlife Hospital. As many, wildlife is where I really have chosen to focus on. I think as well because there are a lot of charitable causes, and it can be overwhelming too. I think if you're like choosing where to donate your money, if you kind of just find that one thing, if everyone's sort of focused on one thing, then that it should just spread a little, sort of hopefully cover all bases. But that is a big thing for me is animals. I've just always loved animals, and I think that as humans we need to take responsibility for the actions and the way that we live, the actions that we've taken to make life very difficult for a lot of wildlife. We literally bulldoze their homes over, and what are we doing about it? And there's just small things that we can do, like the eggs that we buy the free range organic ones, like spend the extra $2, because if you actually saw behind the scenes what went on to get those eggs in that carton at Coles, you would never think twice about spending that extra $2. If the only decision you're making is because of that price tag, you need to think beyond that, because every dollar that we spend is voting for something or not. And the way that our world has this high speed world of convenience and comfort, there is another side to that is affected in a major way. And when it comes to wildlife, these highways that we're building and animals can't cross over, and they're getting run over, and they're ridden with disease, and because we're introducing things into their world that just shouldn't have been there. We need to take responsibility. And if we're lucky enough to play a game for a living, to play poker, if we're lucky enough, or to play a game even just for fun, to have that access to us, if we can, it doesn't matter what we do, even if it's just a non-monetary effort, something that you can do to just also shift your focus in your life to something that's beyond yourself and outside and like bigger than you. It also just helps you as well with your perspective on your own bullshit.
Does. Brings you back to what actually matters, like not the material items. It's like the here and now, and where you can find genuine happiness and not. I think poker as well. It's strange because poker is such a world. Gaming in general, it's such a world that's in a weird way. It's not real life. It doesn't feel like it's real life. As in, we go to so many crazy, beautiful places. The money buy-ins it's just so crazy that then when specifically when I watch you online, I'm like, I'm huge for I hate where the world is going at this point in time. And I think you're so correct that we do need to be kinder to the world that came before us and the world that should exist long after us, but not if we keep going how we do. And I think it was so important that the whole world, like I said, the whole world at that point in time cried so heavily for Australia, because you saw it on the news. It just covered the news for that 6 to 8 month period, but it still happens. We're just not getting news coverage for it anymore, and it's still as important, if not more important than ever before. Yeah. So I just thought it was important to bring that up, because I think of all the exceptional things you've done, and there's many, I think one of the proudest things I do love is you bring Bodhi there all the time,
All
and
the
there's
time.
a little koala
Yeah.
called after him.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, that's like exceptional. Like,
yeah, that I love that. So there's a Bodhi koala, and we call him his little koala brother, and he can visit him whenever he wants. And that is an effort to ensure that, like, I want to make sure that Bodhi's kids and grandkids grow up with koalas in the wild, because the projection actually is that koalas could be completely extinct by 2050 if we keep going the way we are going.
That's
around the corner.
Insane. Yeah, it's literally insane.
25 years away. That's like, Bodhi might not even have a kid yet by then. Like, that's just crazy. And we need to make a change. And it's actually disease that's really the biggest threat to koalas. It's chlamydia that is hurting them. And there is a vaccine that's being trialled now, which is exciting. At the Currumbin Wildlife Hospital, they're trialling that, and so far they've had some success and seen a koala. I think they've had multiple births now under that, and it's been good. So but we need to. There has to be funding to help all of these efforts, right? And if they're not getting the money, then they can't do these things. And but what I just am so grateful for is how generous poker players are, and how amazing poker is as a vehicle to raise money.
Yes.
It is. I think Mike Sexton always used to say this at our charity events. I think it was that poker is like the number one method. Maybe it was a sports method, or it's the number one method to raise money, because it is quite easy to add those elements for people to just keep digging deeper in their pockets. And, and it's got that sexiness to it, and people get to learn the game. And
charity events go off. They're fun.
They're so fun.
Yeah, they bring back the charity events go off.
Yeah,
anytime
they do.
There's a charity event, it's like you naturally get all the poker players who are just dying for a game anyhow, and they're like, "Listen, honey, I would love to stay home this weekend, but I gotta go.
Gotta go. You for the koalas.
I gotta go for charity."
For charity.
And then you also have in that case, you might actually have the wives and the family members that don't necessarily play poker, but they're like, oh, I do like that cause, and it's fun. It's something new, and it kind of feels involved. But I did think WPT have a foundation too, right?
Yeah, WPT Foundation, and we've raised over $50 million so far for different charities. Yeah, it's amazing. It's just such an incredible way to raise money, and the poker community is so generous. And also beyond that too. So people who we have events in New York, in Philadelphia, in Vegas. We had Tiger Jam, which is an event that we do every year with Tiger Woods.
Will was so jealous. If Will's watching this and his family, he was like you meant to know Lynn, and she's like, anyone who watched that was like Tiger Jam. I was like Tiger Woods, and Will was like, like anyone whose golf is like Tiger Woods. You're obviously quite a bit into your career now, but like still like so much more to go. Do you still have like pinch me moments where you're
God,
this
yes.
is insane?
Oh yeah, I still get really nervous and like, what am I going to talk to this person about? Like, what can I bring that could be of any interest? Of course you have those moments of overwhelm, but at the end of the day, everyone is just a person just trying their best, and with their own self-doubts as well, and with their own insecurities, and everyone's just trying their best.
I gotta ask you, what's the one memory that sticks out in your poker career? Acting would be so hard, right? Because like, what the frick? Like, everything's probably cool there, but poker wise, is there one memory, and it's probably maybe earlier on or even recently, where you kind of were just like, what is my life? It's so cool.
Oh my God, I've had so many of them. A lot of them I've spoken about, like at the World Championship, and going deep in that tournament just felt so rewarding, because I also, the best part of that actually it wasn't the money. It was, well, if it was the first place, it definitely would have been the money, but
she'd be like, the brand is whatever, but
it was the support that I got from the community, and how genuinely excited people got for me, like, because people aren't used to seeing me on that side of the felt. So the love that everyone in poker has for poker, and then seeing someone killing it in the game, there is just such a cheer squad.
I was like,
right?
You go, girl.
Oh, thank you.
And I hate poker, but every day I was like, what's our stack like?
It's such a great community. And Phil Ivey just did an interview actually with Joe Ingram and Brad Owen and Adam Pliska. They just released it for Club WPT Gold a couple of days ago, and Angel and I were watching it last night, and even Phil was describing how much the industry has changed. Like back in his day when he was a kid playing with, Chip Reese and Doyle Brunson, he's like, I was always on the outside because you're not going to, none of these guys, like they're cowboys, right? That you can't talk poker strategy with them.
I love that though. I love like old ice.
Of course.
I love going back to Ireland. Like they do not, I don't think I've ever heard Andy Black talk to me about a hand.
Right.
He wants to talk about like, I love that old school type where it's like
that
the
has
young
its...
kids, they always say the young kids with their maths and their graphs.
Yes. But he was saying though, and yeah, so there is such a coolness to it, but then also on the other side is that Phil felt a little bit on the outs, a little bit alone, I guess is what he was saying. But now he's noticed such a shift in the culture where he could just ask even if it's just a kid across the table or guys that he knows on the break or whatever, like everyone just wants to talk about their hands. And if you ask someone, even if he asks a person that he just played the hand with something about that hand, he will tell the truth. And it's just like, oh my God, because back in the day, they're not going to tell you the truth. Why would they tell you? They're still playing poker off the table, right? They're still going to do everything they can to take your money.
Yeah.
But now it's a community, and it's like, let's break it down. Yeah. I'll help you. You help me. We all help each other, and there is that camaraderie. There is that spirit. And then you battle at the felt, but then when the game's over, let's talk about it. Let's help each other. Let's support each other, and that's just awesome.
Oh, I love it. I love it for different reasons. I'm like obviously just an observer, so I love when like things get heated, and I'm like, oh, I'm always one inside like, oh, because in Poker Palace they're like completely different. They're like, you're shit. Like that's just, they literally like, no, I never would have done that, and I'm like, oh. There's always people with like different styles.
There's always
like,
one.
Yia is my favorite. Like Yia always comes in with like mathematical logic. And he tries to talk to like poker players in Sydney, and they're like, no, but I had a read on him. And he's like, okay, well, I can't.
Yeah.
You have a read, you had a read.
You can't debate the read.
But so when you were like naturally out in Anchor, so you actually enjoy poker.
Oh, I love it.
We're so different.
I could sit for hours. So it angers me. That also to that like frustration where I'm not doing enough. Why am I not studying this game for like an hour a day? Why can I not put that time aside? But mum life. But I do. Like I love it.
28 hours and you're 24. So I don't know where you're.
But also it's just because every time you learn a new concept, then you realize like it just opens up 14 more that you're like, okay, so then now I want to, and you just, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't, and that's like life too, right? The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, which is so humbling and amazing.
The more you learn, the less you know.
Yes.
I think one of my lecturers used to say this to me, the more you learn, the less you know. And I was like, that is so depressing, but so accurate because it's Pandora's box, like the further into things.
Which is exciting.
Yeah.
And also empowering in a way to just let go of this pressure that we put on ourselves to know everything, because no one does. Just let it go. Just be confident and comfortable in what you do know. And if you don't know, own it. Who cares?
Yeah.
Just, you don't know it. And now you do.
When I was looking back to your moments, pinch me moments, I do want to say, obviously with regards to Australia, I'm not Australian, obviously, I live here, but Australian poker, you guys are the home of the Aussie Millions. For some reason, you guys seem to just come straight out the bat and just own it, own a big percentage of it. And I wonder if we talked about at the start of this episode, you started in marketing in Crown Casino, which is one of the biggest casinos, most renowned casinos in the world. And then in 2020, after moving to LA, finding your husband, doing all these exceptional things, you returned home to where it all started, and you got honoured in the Australian Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that was a big year.
I saw the most beautiful, I'm actually going to show it to you, but I will put it up on the screen as well. I'm so sentimental, but one of the most beautiful photos I have ever seen in my entire life is this photo.
I know what it is. Yeah, I knew that was going to be the picture.
I promise
with my
you,
parents.
that is the most beautiful photo I have ever seen. And your parents are from, like, they live in Melbourne. They don't anymore.
Not anymore.
But they did at that point in time. And they brought you back in 2020 to honour you in the same place it all started.
That felt like such a full circle moment. And also all my old team members, like my old crew at Crown, they all showed up as well, and I hadn't seen them in so long. And then also like Angelica Hale was there from WPT, who also was an OG Crown person as well. And
oh my God, was she?
Yeah, and I actually kind of so she actually, I think, sat in the same desk that I sat in, and we had the same phone number, and I used to get phone calls. I'm like, who is this Angelica Hale person?
Oh my God, and that's so bizarre.
Isn't that
what
wild?
A strangely small world.
I know. And for anyone who doesn't know, Angelica Hale is the vice president of the World Poker Tour, like the actual tour, and like putting it together and all of the stops that we go to. And, we got to know each other then because we had the same friends. So we had met a few times, but then when I got my job at WPT, now we're like family, and it's just wild. So then to come back to Crown and have all of my old OG friends who were like the original cheerleaders to help me get to, what I'm doing now. And then to also see like Joe Hashem and Tony G and all of these OGs who I was petrified to interview in that room. And now I'm standing with them. Like, what? And also while it was happening, I'm standing there and about to get inducted, Warnie comes running over. He was playing in the event.
Aww.
He comes running over all excited. He's like, "Oh, Lily." He was like so excited for me that I was getting this honor. I'm like, "You're Shane Warne."
But it means so much.
Yes.
Then did you stop and look back and be like, how did I get here? Because it just happened. It just happened so fast. But that moment, I was sure. I was like, she went back to like obviously where she started, like where she grew up. Her parents were there, and then the entire poker community were just so stoked for you, like just so buzzing. I mean, everybody loves you. That's not a lie. Like everybody loves you.
I'll play this anytime I'm having a bad day. I'll just
everybody loves you, and it's just impossible not to. And I was actually saying, I've taken up so much of your time today, and I'm like so thankful. But when I was being convinced to even start a podcast, I was like, oh my God, but who's going to want to talk to me? Like, what?
Oh, come on.
My old boss were like, everyone would want to talk to you. And I was like, nah. And then it was like, you should ask Lynn. And I was like, Lynn Gilmartin? What? And I was so not afraid to ask you, but I'm so conscious that people are so lovely to me that I don't want them to ever feel uncomfortable. So I was like, you really don't have to. And you were just so straight away, like, you will help anybody. I don't think you ever sit and realize how influential you are in poker, but for me specifically to women in poker. I really do think that. And
thank you for saying that.
I really mean it. You're just so kind.
Thank you.
You're classy. If any guy I talk to you about you, all guys say the same words, like, she's so elegant. And I'm like,
that's nice.
That is the perfect synonym. Kind and elegant would be the two words
thank you
I would
very
use
much.
to say you. And I was saying to Will, everything else could go like semi-impromptu, but I did want to read the final part off word for word because I really mean it so intently. And if I walked away and I didn't allocate myself correctly, then I would be upset. So even if it looks unprofessional, I wanted to say that I could literally sit here all day and discuss your life with you, which I could because like I'm a waffler. But you've literally lived a million lifetimes and you just turned 40. And I'm so excited to see what comes next. I will watch you till the end of time. Like, I'm so excited to see what comes next for you. We didn't go into depth specifically about females in poker, and how much we obviously all are advocates for more females in poker. But I don't know much about what you mean to other females. But for me, not only are you the perfect representation of what a female should be in the poker industry, I think you're a perfect representation for any brand and what just a general person who graces the felt should be. You are so kind and sweet. And you are, and you always have the time of day for absolutely everybody. I really do mean that. You're rushing around doing 900 million things, but you never falter to stop and say hello to the cashier, to Martin, you stop for everybody, and that is exceptional. And I just want to thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for everything you've done from the very first day I spoke to you. I swear it'll be like my deathbed and I'll be like, someone will say to me, what's the coolest thing you ever did? And I'm like, well, I worked in a movie because of Lynn. And then just thank you so much.
Right back at you. And you are just a radiant ray of sunshine, and you are always so kind, so funny, and you could sit and have a chat with you and with anyone. You could just, and that's why it's just so perfect that you have started a podcast. And when you did send me that message, I'm like, this is the best idea. If anyone could start one, you with this beautiful accent and your just ease of conversation, like it just makes sense, and the reputation that you have in the game. And that's why when I hadn't met you, but when the Poker Face film opportunity came up, like I had met Will and he was so cool, and everyone speaks so highly of you, and I know you run such a tight ship in Sydney, so it was just a no-brainer. Like I didn't ask anyone else, like it's just straight to you guys, and you're amazing, so thank you. And but I do have to also say, like just always coming back to gratitude whenever you can, whenever you're feeling down, whenever you're, no matter what is going on, if you're just living from a place of gratitude, which you clearly are because you've said the word thank you so many times today. But that really is, I think that's the key to living a happy life, is living a grateful life. And it helps you then appreciate anyone who comes in your path, and to stop and to have a chat and actually appreciate the person that's in front of you, rather than us being stuck in our head and too busy and too angry about the guy who cut you off on the road before you arrived. No, stop and be present and be grateful for the two legs you're standing on right now, or whatever it is that you can find to be grateful for, and just leading by that. So I think that definitely helps. And
oh my God, I swear to God, God must have like carved you and sent you down himself. Like I swear to God, she was not a maiden of fact. Like God must genuinely have carved you and sent you down. And I'm just so, like, we're all so lucky, like, to know you, honestly.
Right back at you.
Thank you.
Thank you, babe.
Thank you so much.